Dear readers of the European Sting, there's one thing that drew my attention last week. Merkel's unspeakable mistake during her visit to Francois Hollande, where she confused the current French president with Francois Mitterand. You heard well, ladies and gentlemen, the most powerful lady in Europe. Instead of saying during her speech Francois Hollande, she said Francois Mitterand. Are all the Francois the same for Angela? Thank God she did not call him Francois Duvalier, the famous former president of Haiti. Wait a minute. That one was black. I will never forget the look of Mr. Hollande's face when Angela got crazy. He could not stop himself from laughing, and neither could the audience of the press conference at the Élysée Palace. On the other hand, Angela smiled for 2 milliseconds, and continued with pride her manifesto on how France should be the accomplice of Germany in the financial annihilation of the European Union. Basically, what happened last week was that France hideously sold out the rest of the European Union and decided to stay under the big German tree, in order to benefit from the apples that can accidentally drop, and by apples I mean French interest rates. In a nutshell, Francois Hollande showed a resentful obedience last week to the European ruler to practically stall the formation of a strong European banking union that would take the whole European project to the next level for the benefit of every European citizen. So, basically France last week paid protection to Germany, but the political atrocities that occurred last week in Paris, you can always find out by reading the Sting. I would like, instead, to focus here on this verbal accident of the great Chancellor. Can it be just synonymity or bad luck for the impeccable bionic woman that is called Angela Merkel? I am afraid not. It is not only the common name that the two French presidents shared. Francois Mitterand was the first socialist president of France and Francois Hollande the second. It seems that Super Angela is behaving in a very stereotypic way. You see, all French are socialists to her. And not only the two presidents that she ridiculously confused, but the whole hexagon, with the almost free higher education, the unions, and the strikes of the employees that protest for a better future. All this is nonsense for the bionic German economy. You see, Mrs. Merkel has erased from the German dictionary the word strike. Everything works perfect in Germany and nobody has any reason to protest. That is why every German lives in rent. But besides the insanely stereotypical behavior of Mrs. Merkel towards the French, Francois Mitterand had something else in common with Francois Hollande. They both exerted pressure on the European policy of Germany. On the one hand, Hollande before the unprecedented fiasco of last week, where he gave earth and water to the Germans, he had repeatedly expressed his position against the monolithic fiscal consolidation and the austerity, while he had stressed the immediate need for growth inside the monetary union. On the other hand, the longest ever serving president of France, the late Francois Mitterand, is well known in European history for the tremendous pressure he expressed to the Germans to quit the mark. Mitterand is famous for the hard political bargain he drove in the past with the German Chancellor Helmut Kohl over the reunification of Germany. Sources mention that Mitterand back then threatened Kohl with a veto on the reunification of the West Germany with the East, if Germany would not quit the mark and head towards the single monetary union. If Freud had Merkel lying on his couch describing her idiotic mistake of last week, he would shout like Archimedes, "Eureka!" According to the father of psychoanalysis, a slip of tongue is an error in speech that is interpreted as occurring due to the interference of some unconscious subdued wish, conflict or thought guided by the superego and the rules of correct behavior. It seems that this is exactly the case here with poor Angela. Merkel last week let her obsession with history, where she had always strayed, overwhelm her. She came to Paris for payback for the hard time Mitterand gave to her political ancestors. And thanks to the loser mentality of her opponent, she won this time. She would love to have against her Mitterand and not the chatty Hollande, but the only thing that woman cannot do is to travel back in time. Is Merkel the only political leader in Germany obsessed with the past? What about Mr. Wolfgang Schäuble, that happened to be also Interior Minister of Germany under Helmut Kohl? And then what about the German people that are democratically represented by the political elite of austerity lovers? The couch of Freud has space only for one at a time, But the list of the future history books with the people that unsuccessfully tried to dismantle the European Union at the dawn of the 21st century has room for plenty. The big question for Brussels to answer now is how to convince the Germans to leave the traumatic past behind. The EU has no present and no future if we don't all roll up our sleeves and fight for the common good. The European Banking Union is indeed the common good here. Even if Francois Hollande cannot be Francois Mitterand this time, all together we can. Until next week, join the hive.